Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. D. Eric Body Beats. It's a vibe.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever do like meditation or anything like that?
No, I should though, because I'm
It might help.
angry. I could get angry.
I'm not gonna lie to you. So I've been like kind of dabbling in meditations in the last 2 years. No, more than that, because I've done different types of meditation. But we've talked about this on the pod a few times. What it does to me, and it takes a little work, because it's hard to just sit there and just be in your brain.
Right.
You know, it's really hard,
Right.
at least at first. But let me ask you this: what do you think meditation is?
Probably my personal, like, I would say what you see in the movies, right? They're like sitting there, eyes closed, trying, I guess, I don't know what you would be focusing on.
Right. See, most people don't. What would you say? Unless we already talked about this.
I don't know if we've talked about it, but yeah, I mean, I think that the whole thing is that you don't think about anything, right? But it's hard to like not think about anything.
So that's actually wrong.
Oh, okay.
No, I know. It's not about not thinking about anything. This is what I thought, because I thought the same thing. Like, man, just sit there and not think about
How are you
something.
not supposed to think of, yeah.
So the idea of meditation is to realize you can't not think about something. I heard a quote once that said, you meditate because you can't meditate. So the whole idea is to notice that you have no control over your thoughts, so then you're not attached to them because they're not your thoughts. You did not control them. We talked about this, I think, on the podcast with Eric.
So, yeah.
I can control your thoughts. Like, don't think about a blue elephant.
Right,
You think
yeah.
about a blue elephant.
Yeah.
Right. And so even when you meditate, so now when you're doing this thing and you're doing all this,
Yeah.
and then you're like, I just want to think about breathing. So they say focus on one thing, because it's really hard to not think about something. It's like impossible, I think.
Yeah.
So you think about, like, me personally, I think about my chest going in and out. But inevitably, I'll think about a bill that I got, or some girl I'm talking to,
Right.
or damn, that blowjob was dope. You know, I'm saying this
I want
kind
to
of
hear
shit
about these
happens.
thoughts.
It kind of happens. And then the idea is to notice that, like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be thinking about breathing, and then go back. And then do it again.
So that's a good way to like learn control over your thoughts a little bit, because I just posted a Facebook status today, and it actually, I don't know if somebody reported it or Facebook just doesn't like me, but it got taken down mid-conversation about internal monologues and how some people don't have them. And I'm like, how the fuck do you not? Yeah, it got taken down because one of my friends commented on it, and I was really intrigued about what he was going to say, because we always have good conversations. And I went to look, and it was gone. And then when I went back, it sent me a thing that my post was removed for misinformation. And I'm like, it's not misinformation. I literally said, my life has forever been changed since I found out some people don't have internal monologues. And that's the weirdest thing.
Wait, so
for me.
Is that misinformation though?
No, if you look it up, it's like
Tom, could you do us a favor? Yes. Would you be able to check? Is that accurate?
an inner monologue.
So what specifically am I?
What's the question? Yeah, what's the question?
I don't know. Are there people out there lucky enough to not fucking have internal monologues? Because
verbatim.
Listen, I'll be in bed. This is part of the conversation. How nice would it be to lay down at the end of the day and you're not thinking about a conversation you had in the morning? Like, I'm going to go home after this and I'm going to lay in bed and I'm going to be like, man, we could have talked about this. I should have said this. But sometimes it's not as simple as that either. You know what I mean? Like, it could be, oh, I should have said this in that argument. Oh, I really could have. And there's people out there who don't have that. I'll ask my son, what are you thinking about when he's like zoning off? And he'll say nothing. Like, what the fuck do you mean nothing? Like, how is there nothing going on in there?
Do you believe that he's thinking about nothing? Or just
I do think that there are people. Yeah. Did you look it up?
So yeah, it says some random professor. There's
fuck that guy.
30 to 50% of people have an inner monologue. He estimates.
But
I mean, that's
proves your point.
There are people though who will say, who was I talking to? And I was explaining, like, man, I hate when I go home at the end of the day. It's probably somebody at the bar. Man, I have to go home at the end of the day and I'm not going to be able to fall asleep right away because my thoughts. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm explaining it. And he goes, so you have conversations with yourself in your head? And I'm like, doesn't everybody?
Yeah, like that.
No, that seems like something everybody. I hear you.
You know what I mean? And he was like, and I was like, can you sit and think about nothing? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like,
no.
How?
No.
I mean, I don't
think
feel like
I don't know.
narrate
Google
my life.
said it's true. So.
Well, no.
Google said
professor.
some.
Google or some professor?
Oh,
a professor on Google
gave me the thing.
The professor.
Yes, Google did not quite put their stamp.
And that was the first link?
That's just the thing that popped up. I wish I could say. But I mean, I'm sure. I think that there's some degree to like where it starts to affect you. right? Like I think that
course,
everyone
yeah.
like has some thought going on. When you're like staring off into the abyss, like you're probably thinking
There's
about something. But I think that people that have a more active monologue probably are like people that are, all right, now you're walking up into this building. Now, like, open the door, get the door here,
Right.
and then be careful, hit the elevator button down here. Like, some
Okay,
people, I think there's like autopilot where it's
vicious.
like you can crank through a lot. But
Yeah.
then there are probably some people that are like and I think it might be somewhat linked to anxious people where you're just like constantly playing through the scenarios.
ADHD. I was diagnosed but not diagnosed recently with ADHD. Like we were getting into the diagnosis. And then I put it on the back burner because of the tumor and the baby and everything else that happened last year. So I met up with this, talked to this therapist. It was during COVID, so we didn't like actually meet up. But I'm talking to this therapist. She asked me a series of questions. It was like the first step. And I guess ADHD in women is severely and underdiagnosed compared to men because it doesn't show up in women until later in life, after puberty or after a delivery. And I don't know if that has to do with like the hormones in your brain that changes after those things happen. And it also shows up differently in women than it does in men. It's not always like the hyperactive part. So like socially disturbing, right? With men, it's like you're off the walls, you talk a lot. With women, it seems to be more, I can't think of the word. That's actually part of ADHD. I have trouble word finding. I have serious issue with word finding to a point where I'll ask my kids, I'll be like, oh, go get something from the bathroom. And
Something
I can't
basic, too.
think of the word bathroom. I'm not fucking kidding you. And it gets to a point where I get so frustrated sometimes that I just don't even finish my sentence. I get really upset. And that was another thing about being part of this podcast, because I think that you and I can have really good conversation. But I'm like, I'm going to sit there and try to think of a word and I'm going to look like a fucking idiot. But my mind...
No, you're good. You're so far so good.
My mind does not, I just can't. And it takes me a second. Sometimes I'll have to close my eyes and give myself a minute and then I'll be, but bathroom, kitchen, my kid's name, like it's really bad. It's really bad.
That's interesting that you would have that, like, I look like a fucking idiot, is because I swear to God, it feels like you don't give a fuck what anyone says, ever. So it's like,
well, yeah,
okay, even if I
usually
look
don't.
like a fucking idiot, okay, fine.
I know.
And again, the reason I started CARESNONE was mainly because, or the reason I started saying the word was because of that, because I knew I wouldn't say it, I don't want to look stupid, but you know what, fuck it, I'm saying it anyway.
Well, right.
It was my way to get some balls, like, so to speak, you know? And so that's super interesting, because I would have thought you, like, literally, you're
well,
like
but that's
perfect.
what I'm saying. This was part of when I still had the anxiety. You know what I'm saying? That was a big thing. I'm like, I'm going to go on there. He's going to ask me a question. Basketball, love basketball, NBA. If you ask me a question and it's an easy one and I should know the answer and I just can't come up with it in the moment, I was going to go home, lay in bed and think about it for an
I got
hour.
what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? So.
D. Eric Body